much, and the purpose of this video is to highlight some disturbing developments taking place. I just finishing a correspondence here. There have a couple things going on, so let's take it from the back and work our way to the front. So we get 33,000 vaccines Monday, and it takes 8 days to start jabbing people. What am I missing? No Operation Warp Speed. It's a 2-hour transit to anywhere in Trinidad and Tobago. All 33,000 vaccines should have been in people's arm already. Country's slow, just like... Anyway, I can't... you can fly to the US, sign up online and get jabbed. When you confirm an appointment, no US ID required, open for all. You need a negative COVID test at least 72 hours before your flight to the US, but you probably already know that. But I want you to see this, and I need to read this correct, so I am not going to give you my opinion on it. I am going to give you what is sent to me. Because, and the purpose of this video is to deal with a couple things that we can't talk about. And that's why I'm asking if we're galloping towards dictatorship, because it looks like freedom of speech in Trinidad and Tobago is under threat. I got a call this morning from an attorney who mentioned to me that as of the 31st of July 2019, an act took place in our courts that seems to have removed the right to freedom of speech. And if that is true, and if that is at all true, then the country is already a dictatorship. If that is at all true, the country is already a dictatorship, and I'll tell you why. All other rights require the right of freedom of speech. Without freedom of speech, all the other rights die. All the other rights that we take for granted, without freedom of speech, they die. I'm trying to get the person who gave me the information on the phone now, so I could do that interview. Then I'll give you the information on the AstraZeneca vaccines, because that's what we've imported into Trinidad, so I've been told. I need confirmation on that. All of these things that we should have in the media. Give me an example. Yesterday, a fellow was murdered in Diego Martin, in Westmoreland, in what has come to be known as Westmoreland. He was murdered across the road from Westmore. He was closer to Columbus Circle. He was closer to West Moorings. He was closer to West Moorings by the sea. He is behind Victoria Gardens. But CNC3 and I think Loop reported it as murder in 4 roads. But that's nowhere near 4 roads. That job site is on Western Main Road. That's the name of that road, Western Main Road. And it's in the West Moorings vicinity. For you to get that body to 4 roads, you have to pick it up and head north about 1.5 miles, and you have to walk past or drive past Victoria Gardens, and you have to drive past Starlight Shopping Plaza to reach 4 roads, and then rest the body down for the news to be correct. There was a joke, there was a long time joke about a police officer who on his way to work found a dead body on Abercrombie Street. He rushed to his station to make the report, and he realized in the station that he couldn't spell Abercrombie. So he ran back and moved the body to Duke Street because he could spell Duke. Body found on Duke. I knew that as a joke my whole life. Yesterday, CNC3, whose owners live in the West, know that ain't 4 roads. And why would we need to lie on something so unimportant unless their concern is property values and the reputation of Westmoreland? That body was closer to Bayside Towers, Guardian Life Towers, La Fontaine, La Riviera, Spanish Court. That body was closer to all of those things. That body was closer to Bayshore. That body was closer to Regent's Park than it was to 4 roads. So why say 4 roads? Why would the media look for, and I have to say, the first poor, depressed community, and I guess they had to say, we could put him in 4 roads, we could put him in Cocorite, we could put him in Carnage, pick one. But 4 roads, Cocorite, and Carnage are outside of the circle of all of the big shot areas in the West, and that project site is like a pimple in the center of all of that. But this is not, and Tommy Ramlal was talking about Trinity police can't spell police. This is not about that. Because the people who made the report was the news media. That job site is not 4 roads. So why would they need to say 4 roads? And it has me asking a lot of questions. I met with a group of attorneys, and they said to me, Phillip, the drug trade through Trinidad and Tobago is still $11 billion US. Right now, COVID, no COVID, the drug trade through Trinidad and Tobago is $11 billion US. That's 77 billion TT. That means the drug trade that comes through our country, that people who live in our country operate a drug trade through our country, launder money, bring in drugs, all the human trafficking, all the guns, everything that happens with it, all the corruption, all the gang warfare, all of it is linked to that drug trade. From the Scott drug report to now, nothing. The current Prime Minister, the last Prime Minister, both chaired the National Security Council. Nothing. Gary Griffith, as Minister of National Security, was the person who put into the public space the maritime security wall and was actively seeking bids to build and secure the nation. You see, Gary knew when he was Minister of National Security that he would, if he secured the borders, if he stopped the flow of guns, drugs, human trafficking, and dirty money, he knew he could end the gangs, because without money, you see how they dry up the money and ISIS gone? You see how they dry up the money and Al-Qaeda gone? When Donald Trump came to office, he told Saudi Arabia, if they continue to fund those organizations, he'll wipe them off the global map. And they stopped. And Al-Qaeda and ISIS stopped. Now that Trump is gone and we have a more liberal president, expect that things like that will prop up again, because those are good ways and means to sell guns and bombs, and that's another story for another time. But for all of Trump's term in office, there was no Al-Qaeda and there was no ISIS. And in Trinidad and Tobago, it would be the same. If you were able to stop the drug money coming through this country, because it's $77 billion, you'd end the gangs, and you'd end the public service corruption, all of it. You'd be able to start to pin down, because right now, they can't find the dirty money, and they want you to put your life at risk to point it and come and touch it and say, look at here, look, Harry giving it to Jim. And I say Harry and I say Jim, not knowing any Harry or any Jim in any corruption right now, in case there is a public official named Harry and another one named Jim who thinks that I'm defaming them and uses the defamation law to sue me. But that's the reality of Trinidad and Tobago. Now, we cannot ask questions anymore. And I brought up the other day, the Minister of Health, when questioned about if his family, if he was connected in any way to the company that was given the contract to bring the vaccines into Trinidad and Tobago, after he denied it, he went on a rant to talk about suing Suzette Lau and Marcia Braveboy. And I had to stand up for them. Because, and Trinidad and Tobago needs to know this. And to all of you, Anil Beam said something yesterday, the Beamer. Chutney star Anil Beam said something yesterday. And I shared it with everybody. I'm going to share it with you this morning, those of you who didn't read it. You see this fight for our freedom and rights that we're ignoring? Our innocent children will one day have to. They will have to face an oppression that will most likely be law by that time. And their fight will be much harder than the ones we're refusing to acknowledge today. Sad how we're letting them ruin our world. Pretty soon, you'll all have to abide by whatever they say, else you'll be left out of what society will be. This is some book of revelation, things happening in front of our eyes, and some are just not seeing the dangers and what we're becoming. Now, I am one person, and I cannot realistically take on all of the issues that are before the public space and everything. Somebody wrote me yesterday to tell me, without the wound care clinic in St. James that they arbitrarily shut down, she'll lose her leg. Because nobody else could do what the wound care clinic under Dr. Leala does in St. James. I don't know if that's true. I don't have the resources to investigate. But I'm telling Trinidad and Tobago something today. And it'll tie into the Candlelight Movement's petition. You see, that petition is symbolic. That petition has grown in stature beyond Andrea. It's grown beyond Andrea Barrett and all the girls and all the women who have lost their lives in this country. It's grown in stature beyond being a petition that asks for 5 things to be done, because one of the 5 things that it asks for is a commission of inquiry into the criminal justice system. And that's real important. That's more important than the other 4. That's real important. And I'll tell you why it's real important. Because if you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, could force your government to do a commission of inquiry into the criminal justice system and then abide by the recommendations of the commissioners, you would have single-handedly changed the country, and then you would be able to petition the government to do just about anything you want, to get them to function the way you want them to function, and the government is scared to death of that. Andrea's body was found a week after she went missing. And between February 4th and February 9th, we started this vigil. And it's been going on. Today's the last day in March. All of February, all of March. We were supposed to have our walk from Andrea's house to the Parliament on the 9th of April. That's taking it into our 3rd month. And the government does not know how to deal with an issue that's lasting this long in the public space, because it's challenging their maximum control. People like Marcia Braveboy, who is in hiding from this government, and I say that, I spoke with Marcia Braveboy yesterday, and I want to say as an aside, the Andrea effect in this country at this time is real, because Andrea, and I want to thank her, has ended the enmity I had with a lot of other public people. And I want to thank Andrea Barrett for that. She's made it possible for me and Inchan to bury our grouse, and me and Winston Ragu, and now me and Marcia Braveboy. And I'm happy for that. I'm really happy for that. Marcia Braveboy, who is in hiding, and Suzette Lauer, who is out of the country. And I want to say this to Suzette again. You said, Suzette, that when you settle your daughters, you want to come home to fight for your country. I want to tell you, Suzette, if you want to fight for this country, do it from outside. We need people like you outside, doing the fight, leading the fight from outside too, because we don't have many people who, beyond a like and a share and a pithy comment on a Facebook post, after the video is done and they applaud me for 2 minutes, they move on to baking cookies, washing clothes, and shampooing the cat. And we need people who are beyond the reach. Beyond the reach. Johnny Narain, Johnny Walker, was threatened by the Minister of National Security with a defamation lawsuit in America. And as of today's date, Stuart Young has not been able to follow up on that. And we need Johnny Narain, also known as Johnny Walker, to stay outside of Trinidad and Tobago. The world needs people like Suzette and Johnny. And it needs, there were a lot of other people like Challoner and Chester and people who used to speak up and used to speak out that seem to have gone quiet and they need to talk more. Now is a dangerous time in Trinidad and Tobago. Dangerous, dangerous time. Let's touch on one thing here. I want to come back to the death of the freedom of speech in Trinidad and Tobago, because that is something that without that, all of the freedoms die. So all of the Afro-Raymonds and the Kirkwaits and the anybody else who speaks up and out, they will lose their ability to speak. They will lose their ability to stand up for anything. While I'm waiting on this person to return my call, we imported the AstraZeneca vaccine. Now, this I am about to read to you is important. This is from this CBC. What's happening with the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine around the world? Canada's Vaccine Advisory Committee on Monday recommended suspending the use of the AstraZeneca Oxford COVID-19 vaccine in people under 55 because of safety concerns, the latest setbacks for a vaccine seen as crucial in tackling the coronavirus pandemic across the globe. The National Advisory Committee on Immunization updated its guidelines to provinces and territories following reports out of Europe of rare instances of blood clots in some immunized patients, notably among younger women. Clinical and real-world data have suggested the vaccine, which is easier and cheaper to transport than rival shots, is successful in reducing serious illness and death connected to COVID-19, but it has been dogged by communication and questions about possible side effects. Here's the latest on the vaccine status in other countries. Germany. German health officials agreed Tuesday to only give the AstraZeneca vaccine to people aged 60 or older unless they belong to a high-risk category for serious illness from COVID-19 and have agreed with their doctor to take the vaccine despite the risk of serious side effects. The move follows the recommendation of Germany's independent vaccine panel and comes after the country's medical regulator released new data showing a rise in reported cases of an unusual form of blood clot in the head known as sinus vein thrombosis in recent recipients of the vaccine. Spain has decided to remove an upper age limit of 65 years on the AstraZeneca vaccine, Cadena Ser Radio reported on Tuesday. A public health commission approved the change at a meeting on Tuesday, the broadcaster said, citing a document it had seen that comes a week after Spain decided to reintroduce the AstraZeneca shot for people aged 18 to 65. Italy resumed using the AstraZeneca vaccine on all groups on March 19 after briefly pausing usage earlier this month. On Tuesday, Prime Minister Mario Draghi and his wife Maria Serenella Capello, who are both 73, received their first doses of the vaccine at a large vaccination center set up at Rome's main railway station, the Prime Minister's office said. The head of the health panel advising the government has said that Italians who declined to be inoculated with the AstraZeneca vaccine will be reconsidered later for another type of vaccine. France's medical regulator approved the resumed use of AstraZeneca vaccine on March 19, but said it should only be given to people aged 55 and older. Denmark was among the first countries in Europe to suspend the use of AstraZeneca vaccine this month over concerns about the rare cases of blood clots. On March 25th, it extended its suspension for another 3 weeks pending further investigation. Norway, like neighboring Denmark, Norway suspended the rollout of the AstraZeneca vaccine on March 11th. On March 26th, health officials said they would delay a decision on whether to resume its use until April 15. Sweden. The country's health agency said on March 25th it will resume use of the vaccine for people aged 65 and older, but keep the pause in place for younger Swedes. Thailand. Thailand began using the AstraZeneca vaccine on March 16 after delayed rollout the week before over safety concerns. South Korea. South Korea authorized the AstraZeneca vaccine for people 65 and older earlier this month after delaying its use for that age group, citing a lack of clinical data. Cameroon. Cameroon's health ministry suspended administration of the batch of AstraZeneca vaccine it was scheduled to receive on March 20 as part of the global vaccine sharing initiative COVAX. The ministry said in a statement March 18 that the suspension was due to precaution and prudence. It gave no further reason for the decision or say if it will go ahead and take delivery of its share of the vaccine. United States. While the AstraZeneca vaccine has been authorized for use in more than 50 countries, it has not yet been given the green light in the United States. United States health officials had publicly rebuked the drug maker for not using the most up-to-date information when it published an interim analysis of its major U.S. trial on March 22nd that said the vaccine had a 79% efficacy rate at preventing symptomatic illness. An updated analysis showed a 76% efficacy rate. AstraZeneca said a few days later. AstraZeneca said it plans to seek U.S. emergency use authorization in the coming weeks. I want to tell you something. And in Trinidad and Tobago, this is mission critical. The Ministry of Health has an obligation to tell the people of this country, of the 142 people who have died, what were their ages and what comorbidities existed. Now, we are serving that letter, I believe today. It's been interrupted by the holidays. The Citizens Union of Trinidad and Tobago, on behalf of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, is seeking information that clarifies what our COVID-19 profile is. We believe that we are overcorrecting and overreacting in a country where there is very little hospitalization and very little death. And the death from COVID-19, we believe that the reason we are not given statistics showing age and comorbidity is that it would demonstrate almost conclusively that Trinidad and Tobago is not an at-risk state for COVID-19, and that the government is using COVID-19 conveniently. Something else. There have been people who have been locked out of this country. Somebody sued the state. The court ruled, and this is frightening. And I want to read what the court said. Crap. This is what, just now, close the phone. I tried to bring all of it to you one time. This is what the court said, and this is frightening to say the least. The Attorney General, Government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Office of the Attorney General, Corporate Communications Unit, March 29, 2021, for immediate release. Court upholds the constitutionality of border closure. Now, I want you to hear how fast and loose the Attorney General's Corporate Communications Unit playing with this term of constitutionality. The Attorney General is pleased to announce that the closure of the borders of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago and the managed re-entry of nationals under the public health regulations have been upheld by the High Court in a written ruling on Monday, 29 March 2021 by Madam Justice Eleanor Donaldson Honeywell in the matter of Takesha Claremont versus the Minister of Health and the Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago. Essentially, now this is a release from the Attorney General's office. When you preface information with the word essentially, what it means is I am not going to give you all of the information for you to make an informed decision, but I'm going to tell you the informed decision that I've arrived at, and I'm going to ask you to toe that line. Essentially, the public health regulations as developed by the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago to guard against the ravaging effects of the public health risk caused by an infectious disease, which allow for the closure of borders and the exemption process, were found to be intra vires the Public Health Ordinance 1940, which is saved law and therefore not subject to constitutional challenge. Now, if Trinidad and Tobago does not get frightened at the concept of us having law that our justice system, our court system, our ministry, our attorney general could refer to as save law, it means that our constitution that makes us a sovereign state is not as sovereign as we think. Here it is. The court went on to note that rights under the Constitution are not absolute. They carry reciprocal duties and responsibilities and may be subject to such restrictions as are necessary in a democratic society. That's an oxymoron. That entire sentence is an oxymoron. And I hope and I pray that this person takes this judgment to the Privy Council. I would like to hear what the law lords make of a statement that says the court went on to note that rights under the Constitution are not absolute. They carry reciprocal duties and responsibilities and may be subject to such restrictions as are necessary in a democratic society in the public interest of national security, public safety, and protection of the rights of other persons. This applies to rights such as freedom of movement and entry into Trinidad and Tobago. The court therefore found, and it gets worse, even if the public health regulations were subject to constitutional challenge, the closure of the borders and the managed re-entry of nationals are not unconstitutional and are in fact a proportionate response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Consequently, the court therefore rejected and dismissed the claimant's claim. Now, I want to know, on what did the court base what came across as a medical decision? The court has made a medical decision in the absence of the very information that we're calling for. Now, my brother Paul is calling me right now, and I need to let him know that we're doing a live video and we're talking about the AstraZeneca vaccination. And I want to know, Paul, I can either call you back or you can make a contribution right now. I read the information into the public space about all the countries that are insisting that you do not use AstraZeneca for people under the age of 60. Do you want to make a contribution now or should I call you back?
Are you live?
Live right now.
Yeah, I can speak.
This is my brother Paul. He's a professor, epidemiologist, Dr. Paul Alexander, and he is the person who gave me the information on the AstraZeneca vaccine that we have in Trinidad and Tobago. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, well, Phillip, thanks for talking. Thanks for taking a call. So anyway, look, I mean, I'm a Trinidadian Tobagonian too, but I'm on top of the science because, I mean, this is part of my work right now. Now, I know a lot of people pushing, we're trying to get population vaccinated, and this is the key here. The key is that right now, we think that the only population to be prioritized for vaccines are elderly people with medical conditions. And the reason why we're saying this is this. We have good evidence that if you acquire natural immunity, meaning natural exposure, why would you take a vaccine when the natural exposure immunity is much more durable, broad, comprehensive, and long-lasting? Here's the key key. They have two issues that raise a concern. we've realized that the vaccine developers made a mistake with the vaccines. And one of the key mistakes was they only made the vaccine with a very narrow immunity response. So the target that they give your immune system is just the spike protein on the virus. So that means that when we administer the vaccine, the mRNA vaccines or even the AstraZeneca model, which I believe delivers the full spike into you, the bottom line is your immune system is building antibodies only to that spike protein. And what we found now is this. The vaccine programs itself putting a lot of selection pressure on the virus. So that the virus, we are actually driving the mutations. These variants or mutations that we're talking about, it's because of the vaccine program, the lockdowns, etc. The virus is mutating because of pressure we put in on it, selection pressure we call it. So that is a huge problem. Now, that would not be a problem if an individual has naturally acquired immunity that's much broader. So when put it this way, when an antigen or a foreign substance enters your body, your immune system has multiple looks at that antigen, meaning it's looking at it from the back, the top, the bottom, the side. It looks at all of the proteins on the structure of that substance. So it builds immune cells or antibodies for the whole structure. What they've done with this vaccine is they are asking your immune system to only build antibodies to the spike. So if the spike mutates, which it does naturally because viruses mutate, that's what they do. They are very mutable entity. Then you're telling me that I am going to be vaccinated with a substance on the antigen or the particle or the, in this case is this spike protein. My antibodies and my immune system only has a look and it builds antibodies only to that spike. So that if the spike mutates, the area in the spike we're talking about, it's called epitope. If there are mutations on the viral epitope, when that spike confronts my immune system again in the future via SARS virus, it is likely that the immune response is so narrow that with a mutated spike, it will laugh at your immune system and blow past it, and essentially you are actually not immune anymore.
I want to ask you a question. I want to interrupt you and ask a question on this so that people understand what you're trying to say. When your body produces antibodies in response to a pathogen or a virus or anything, it creates broad-based antibodies, yes?
Broad-based, what we call sterilizing immunity. Sterilizing means with neutralizing antibodies that is complete, and it essentially means that you...
But it could manage mutations.
Well, with natural immunity, if you got it naturally, or if this vaccine was built properly, a properly built vaccine, meaning it took into account the virus and you look at the virus and you look at the shell of the virus, the outer coat, and you look at all of the structural proteins, the nuclear capsid, the spike, all of the structural proteins on the particle, the viral particle, and your immune system will build antibodies for every possible shape. So when it's coming at it again in the future, in the wild, we call that wild type exposure. When you get exposed to it, you have immune systems, you have immune cells of all types that it could see any kind of part of that virus. So,
and it could mutate itself. That is what antibodies do. So that's why if you take an antibody test, you would know if you have created antibodies to something like COVID-19 in the past, yes?
If you took an antibody test, a seroprevalence test, yes, you would know.
So I need to ask you a question here. Because this is... I know, but you see, I want you to come back to it when I give you this information, because Trinidad is looking at itself in terms of what's going on in the world, and they grab scary statistics from Brazil or America or wherever. But I want you to look at it in terms of Trinidad's statistics and tell me if we should be doing a mad rush to a vaccine now.
No, and I'll tell you why.
But I want to give you some numbers. I want to give you some numbers, and I'll put the numbers in the public space, because there are people who have been scared by the government into panic, and I want them to understand that for the entire year that we've been treating with COVID-19, a year and a month now, our total cases out of 1.4 million people has been 8,004 cases. Of that 8,004 cases, 1.5% of them have died. 142 people. 1.5% of the 8,004 that got COVID, 7,608 fully recovered. Right now in Trinidad and Tobago, they say we have 254 cases, only 14 are serious and critical that require hospitalization. On a global level, and I need this to be discussed too when we're looking at everything, because people need to understand, and I want to ask, at what point does the world say, wait a minute, we are overreacting now? In an entire world of cases, 106 million cases were closed. That means the people were recovered, discharged, or otherwise had an outcome. 104 million recovered and discharged, that's 97%. 2,819,475, 3% of the people who got COVID died. Those numbers, when contrasted and compared with the other things that are contagious or even lifestyle diseases that are preventable or otherwise manageable that lead to death, none of them have caused us to react like this. And our reaction, and I'm not talking about the world anymore, Trinidad's reaction has pretty much destroyed our economy and has allowed the government to loot our heritage and stabilization fund, write itself very discriminatory laws that eviscerate human rights and civil liberties. And right now, for 24 people being sick in the country, our chief medical officer was able to take away the rights of our people in Trinidad and Tobago to just go about their business. We just had the madness of a court upholding the unconstitutional. 14 people are sick. I am willing to bet right now there are 15 people in this country with a serious case of measles or mumps or chicken pox or smallpox. Why aren't we 500 people a year are murdered in Trinidad and Tobago? We're dealing with a total 1 year in the height of the we didn't know what coronavirus COVID-19 was. 142 people died. The government has not given us the information as to what percentage of that 142 were people above the age of 60 who had comorbidities. And without that information, we are literally uncovering Peter to pay for Paul in a country where if the information was made public, we wouldn't even be trying to vaccinate anybody at all.
Yeah. So, I can respond?
Yeah.
I think that's very, very important information you just shared. Let me say it this way, Phillip. Okay? It's been a year, and yes, there's so much out there, but there's certain simple things that people need to understand. One, and I want to get back to the vaccine quickly, but you need to look at it this way. If we were on an island that was completely sealed, and it had 1,000 people in it, that's all, 1,000 people. I'm making it simple. And the average age of the people there, the 1,000 people, was 25. They had a couple children and a few people as old as 50. Nobody older than 50. And every single 1,000 person was healthy. No comorbid conditions. Healthy people. Young, healthy people. If this same virus had visited that island, it would have spread rapidly because this is a contagious virus. It's a little more contagious than influenza. Contagious is not lethality. Anyway, it's very contagious. It would have spread through that 1,000 people I just spoke about. But you would have a sum total of 0 deaths. You'd have had 0 serious illnesses. This virus exploits unhealthy populations. That's something you need to understand. It's not the virus. It's populations like the United States, Canada, Britain, etc. that were very unhealthy. A lot of diabetes, a lot of hypertension, a lot of obesity. Obesity, excess body weight, has emerged as probably the principal risk factor. That's something I wanted to tell you here. Now, here's the key, Phillip. The key is, when we look at the data today, the infection fatality rate, which is the key fatality rate, not the case fatality rate you just quoted, that 3% you said. No. The case fatality rate is just computed by looking at all of those who are lab confirmed. That's in your denominator. But the correct statistic is the infection fatality rate, the IFR we call it. And the infection fatality rate across the world today is 0.15%. Okay? 0.15%. And when we take that data apart further, and we look at persons 70 years and younger, so from 0 years to 70 years, we find that the infection fatality rate is 0.05%. It's the infection fatality rate 70 years old and younger. What does that mean? That means that you have a 99.5% chance of survival if you bump up into COVID. It means that if you are 70 years and younger and you get COVID infection, the chances of you getting ill or dying from it is almost zero. It's almost zero. The people who have a problem are people who are over 70 and have some kind of grave medical condition. I don't care who I'm speaking to. I will tell you this. If you show me a child or a young person and you say, hey, well, Paul, look, this 15-year-old or this 8-year-old or this 26-year-old man died of COVID, I will be willing to bet you that if you show me the autopsy and you show me the medical records, we could show you that that person had a grave medical condition, that child, sadly, but that's the truth, that would have killed them absent of COVID. So the data today says that the force of mortality from COVID is at the level of regular seasonal influenza or even lower, not higher. This is a serious pathogen for old people who are sick. It started that way and it remains that way. It was used as a political and an economic tool to damage Trump. And the whole world glammed on to that because they realized, governments, that they could accrue massive power of control and they could enact things on their populations that they could not do. They are using COVID dangerously on our populace I'll be as blunt as this. If you are a person who is of reason, no medical conditions, and under 70, you should not take any of the vaccines. I am not taking the vaccine. Nobody in my immediate family is taking it, and many of my friends are not.
Yeah, but what happens if we get to a place where they start to legislate these vaccines?
That's the point. The point is, the powers that be have realized that they have people in the world like you, many smart trainees also, many smart people who realize there's a bunch of bull. So only 15% of the United States population right now immunized. After they started this, only 85% of people flipped them the bird in America, not taking it. So they're using strategies like they want to make businesses and companies ask you, force you to have some kind of paperwork to show you are vaccinated. That is where we've gotten. That's the key question. We need now to stand up with our pocketbooks and say no. But then I will boycott your business.
But Paul, I wanna ask you this question. Less than one point.
They never let me finish about the vaccine.
No, because I think you've made the point, and you've made the point, and I think that they understand. But what they don't understand, what people are trying to understand, is how does a world that has so many professionals, so many people who are governed by ethics and oaths of office, how could in a world where less than 1.5% of the entire population of the world, 129 million total, have gotten coronavirus, of that 129 million, less than 1.5% of them have died. 104 million fully recovered, going about their business. How in this world is this still a thing? How is this not a joke? How is Dave Chappelle and Dennis Miller and Jon Stewart not ripping this apart? How are we still masking and washing and believing the nonsense that after a full year, less than 1.5% of 1.5% of people who got a sickness died? It's not a pandemic.
Yes, and there's something that you need to understand when you say those numbers for the future. When you're speaking about this, you said 107 million infected and recovered, or
129 million in total infected, 104 million recovered.
That's wrong. We know the actual data. The 129 million in the world that's infected is actually 10 times that, because we have a ratio that we apply for every one case that is lab confirmed. There are actually 9 cases that have been not captured in the confirmation. 9 people, additional people who've been infected and recovered. So the denominator of the equation to work out the mortality, etc.,
even smaller.
What?
The mortality is even less.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. That's what these governments and these media, television experts, you see them putting up talking to you. They know they're lying. They're lying in America and Canada. But look, I'm a scientist. I'm part of this. We understand what they're doing. They're lying to the general public. They're not telling you that the ratio is 10 to 1. So that denominator is actually like 1.5 billion people in the world have gotten COVID and recovered. That's the actual fact. So the mortality goes vanishingly small. But they won't let you know this, because then the cat is more out of the bag. But you ask a question, so I'll answer it this way. Most of the medical doctors in America and Canada and Britain, and you see it in Trinidad, they survive. Many of them are attached to universities, or they're attached to hospitals, etc. These hospitals and universities in America and in Canada, etc.
Sorry, I need to interrupt you because somebody just said something in the thread. I need to debunk that. Somebody named Emmanuel Peter said, same thing if 1 die and 9 deaths are not reported. I want Mr. Emmanuel Peter to know this, and for anybody else who reads that comment after.
Emmanuel Peters is an asshole.
No, I want to tell him, a death is not something that you can overlook. somebody will report that mommy or granny or daddy or grandpa or whatever is dead. A sickness that you get that goes, you could not tell anybody. But a death, forget it. Just go forward. I just need to debunk that. Continue what you were saying.
Yeah. No, Emmanuel's the type of trini you sitting down eating lunch with or you're drinking coffee and you hear him talking this kind of crap. And you realize today that's why trinis sometimes still in the same position they are. He's an idiot. And death is a hard objective outcome. You can't, it's either you die or you're alive.
You can't hide a death. You can't hide a death.
Correct. Yes. That is captured in the hospitals and wherever accurately. So he's an idiot. Anyway, the point I'm making to you is this. Most of these doctors connected to a university or teaching hospital, etc., they get grants from agencies in the government. In America, many research institutions get grants from the National Institute of Health, NIH. Okay? So you have these doctors who actually doing some kind of research, have a little lab running, or they work in a hospital, gets research. The hospital has a meeting in last February and told doctors, you cannot speak out against even garbage that coming out of the CDC or the NIH or the NHS in Britain, etc., or the CIHR in Canada. Why? Because these people give you your little research.
So it could be blackballed.
Sleeping on your cot, playing with the petri dish, and playing with the little
so you could be blacklisted, you could lose funding, and you could lose any and all memberships in clubs and stuff. I understand that.
Exactly, and the university will lose funding. And universities, if you look at the rankings, etc., they're ranked principally based
accreditations. You will lose accreditations, and they dangle these things in front of them. Yeah, I get that now. But the reason I asked you, the reason I asked you is because you're a global scientist. You were an advisor to the Trump White House. You were one of the people who put in the public space early o'clock that this might be an overcorrection, and you were proven correct. Because the numbers, and this is all I want to say, even their numbers, your numbers makes it worse for them, but their numbers suggest, and I'm saying again, based on their numbers, 1.5% of the population of the world gets an illness, and only 1.5% of those people that get the illness succumb. That does not a pandemic make. That does not a pandemic make. And we, the people of the entire world, and I said as a joke in a video that I'm half Syrian. And if I found out today that there was a virus moving through the community, killing half Syrians, I will quarantine myself. But I don't think the half Chinese should be quarantined because I am at risk. And I don't think the half Indians should be quarantined, or the half Negroes, Africans, however you pronounce it now. I don't think that they should be quarantined because I am at risk. I am a half Syrian, and if the illness is targeting me. You've proven, science has proven, that people above a certain age group with comorbidities are likely to succumb. Why?
They're not likely to succumb. They can get sick, etc. But remember, this is not February 2020. We in April now, 2021. We know much better now how
you have
to
the
manage
info.
it in the hospital, and we have treatment. We have corticosteroid treatments like budesonide, methylprednisolone.
I had asked you about that in our first conversation. Broad-based antibiotics. Yeah?
Not antibiotics. Well, antibiotics is part of the treatment. The corticosteroids, the antivirals, and we have antithrombotic drugs, because a lot of people who get severe illness is because of microthrombi in the lungs, in the brain, in the cardiovascular systems. We have the drugs and they do work. You need to get those people into the hospital, the very sick people. So COVID is not a death sentence. Even for old people who have comorbid conditions, many of them, if we manage them properly and treat them, and we give them the proper ventilation, not just flood them with on the ventilator, we need to gently introduce the oxygen, they will survive. The question is, does your government, does your health system have that kind of support? But
But we only have 14. We only have 14 critical cases. Doesn't make a difference.
Okay, listen to what the problem Trinidad faces. Okay, and I was talking to a bunch of top scientists and immunologists about this even yesterday, because I come from Trinidad and we have a situation that emerging in places like New Zealand, and now it's happening in Canada. Here's the problem. This is the core problem. When we locked down in the beginning, and you extended the lockdown, and you re-locked down, and you closed schools, that was the catastrophic mistake that we were saying. We were telling governments that you secure the elderly and the high risk properly first, and you let the rest of the society take reasonable precautions, sensible precautions.
You there? You getting a call? You gotta read. We're not hearing you, so you have to reject that call you're getting if you're hearing me. That's the thing with WhatsApp. If somebody gets a call while you're on a WhatsApp call, this happens. So let's wait and see if we get him back. This is what the world is reacting to. And I want to tell you something. If I leave this page on worldodometer.com, okay, I've lost my brother on this call, and I'll wait for him to call me back. While I was on that, I got a lot of calls. I can't take any of those calls right now. But you need to know this. To all the people messaging me saying they want to pay for advertising and sponsorship on my page, please reach out to Felicia Holder, 769-4590. I don't deal with it directly. Felicia Holder deals with anything that has anything to do with money in our organization, including this page. And anybody who wants to advertise on this page, please reach out to Felicia, 769-4590. Yeah, but there are truths that cannot be ignored. And those truths, right now, there are 850 million undernourished people in the world. All of these truths, there are 45 million HIV/AIDS infected people. There are 412,000 deaths caused by AIDS this year. 2,013,000 deaths caused by cancer this year. 96,000. Where am I reading about? This is America or the world? World population. And I want to get a flu number for you. $3,181,970 communicable disease deaths this year. 120,434. This is April, eh? So January, February, March. This is 3 months in. So you have to multiply that by 4 to get what would be the annual case for coronavirus. To have 2 million deaths in the whole year that we've had it, then we need to accept and understand that the truth as it exists. I'll get him my brother back. Paul. Yeah, you hear me? Yes, you were saying that the government was supposed to give some information, make some decisions based on something.
Yeah, listen. The problem here is this. It's a very important problem. When we had locked the societies down, we prevented, in essence, and closed schools, we prevented our populations from adequately developing proper levels of natural immunity. So Trinidad is faced with a problem, and I know what I'm telling you because I'm discussing Trinidad privately with high-level immunologists across the world who are involved in this vaccine development. And this is what they have shared with me. The problem with Trinidad is, a place like Trinidad is, you locked down for too long, and we prevented many more people in the population to be exposed to COVID, especially young, healthy people in Trinidad, and get natural immunity, which was more broad-based. Why is that a problem now? Countries like New Zealand and Australia, etc., and Ontario, Canada, why we are facing a huge problem and we're staring down a gun barrel is this, and Trinidad is this. The vaccine with the spike protein-specific immunity is so narrow that right now you're vaccinating people. We're not even talking about the lack of safety yet. I'm going to finish with that. You're vaccinating people with a vaccine that their body is going to produce a very specific narrow immunity. And right now, the virus is mutating. So the variants with the mutated strains will come at you again after you are vaccinated, and it's as if you have no vaccine.
So they're creating a market to sell COVID-19, COVID-20, COVID-21.
Exactly, more vaccines. And why is this a problem? The problem is this, Philip. Several problems. The problem is that when you don't have immunity, which many Trinidadians don't, because we locked you down too long, and you did not develop broad. If the population had a higher level of natural immunity, you would have had broader-based antibodies. So that even if this virus is mutating like it's doing now, we know it mutated. Like they have the B117 strain, they have the P1 strain out of Brazil, etc. When those come at you with natural immunity, not vaccine immunity, natural immunity, you are more able, regardless if it throw variants at you, your immune system is able to knock that down and neutralize it, and you could get past it. Right now, we have, in essence, set our societies up, the ones that did the hard lockdowns. You might turn around and tell me, well, our cases were so low and our deaths were so low. I will turn around and tell you that's a problem. It is a huge problem. The government is better right now to throw everything open, secure the high-risk people properly. I keep saying that first. If you don't do that, nothing will work. You need to secure the high-risk, and you let your population live naturally, and you let normal, healthy people get exposed. Don't expose granny. You secure granny, but you let children go to school. You do everything you can so people can have natural immunity. Because now we are realizing that all these people that are being vaccinated are going to be defenseless against the variants. That's a key point. Number two, we have found too that the AstraZeneca vaccine has been pulled by many nations in the world, and Canada was.
I read all of the statistics before you came on the phone. I read everything: Sweden, Italy, France, Germany, Spain.
But just how moronic, or how idiotic, or how reckless and dangerous is the government of Trinidad that they could dump AstraZeneca vaccines in Trinidad when we know that there are cases of thrombocytopenia and blood clots that have severely killed people and killed them.
Blood clots in the brain. What he's talking about is blood clots in the brain, and it leads to death.
Yes. So how come these vaccines arrive on Trinidad shores when other countries say stop? I don't understand that. Is it that Trinidadians are idiots? Is it that we're such poor, stupid people in the Caribbean that the government could experiment with us? Listen, I want to be as clear as I could with you. If you are 70 years old and younger, and you are a generally healthy person, and you don't have any severe illness, I would not recommend anyone take this vaccine, or any vaccine. You don't take this vaccine when you could be exposed to this virus naturally in the wild and develop natural immunity. Okay, why would you put a foreign substance in your body? Remember, a vaccine normally takes 10 to 15 years to develop. After we look at the data for effectiveness, then we need to follow it for multiple years for safety. We did not do that for this vaccine. This vaccine was put to market after 3 to 4 to 5 months of follow-up.
And that is why the United States has refused to use this vaccine still.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because people are not stupid. Listen, the FDA has indemnified itself by issuing what we call an emergency use authorization. And what the public needs to understand is this. It sounds like a fancy term, but what it is a term that they developed where it states that if you could show some reasonable benefit, that the benefit looks like, we're not sure, but it looks like it benefit is greater than harm, we will not put this substance, this drug, this vaccine, this medical device through heavy regulatory approval yet. We will do the regulatory approval behind the scenes as long as that takes, but we'll put it to market in the interim. They have given these, and what we call that is that's an experimental authorization. So these vaccines are an experimental authorization. It means
but that is for an emergency that doesn't exist.
Yes. Everybody who's getting the vaccine today anywhere in the world, your information is actually logged seriously somewhere. You are part of a phase 3 clinical trial. The public doesn't know this. You are in a phase 3 trial once you took a vaccine because they're going to use your information, whether you lived or died, whether you got a severe illness or adverse reaction or not, and they're going to use that in 3 years when they calculate final figures of if the vaccine works or if it is safe. And if then they determine it's unsafe, then they will pull it. But by then you've got the vaccine and you have this thing in you that could be a ticking time bomb. And I'm not kidding you. I was part of the administration in my own way. And I voiced my opinion that only the elderly should get this vaccine.
Paul,
because they're in a great condition.
I want to tell you something. You and the courage that you've shown to stand up and speak out, and now that the numbers are bearing out every single thing that you've said, I want to applaud you for that. I want to carry on what you've said here. I want people to know, and I want to ask you one more question before you and I go. If we had handled this differently, as you and I spoke about in the first time you and I spoke about this in March 2020, if we had handled this differently, secured the elderly and those with comorbidities and allowed herd immunity to develop in the country with secured borders, would we be in a better position today?
Absolutely. And the perfect example of that, the closest example to that is Sweden. And Sweden did not even secure the elderly properly. Yet today, Sweden is as close to an example of what
should have been done.
When you let the rest of the society live normally. So they did have some deaths in the elderly because they admit we didn't secure. We allowed everybody to move forward. But as time went on, the rest of the population, so they took the deaths in the elderly, but the rest of the population developed population level immunity. And listen, here's the statistic you need to understand. This statistic, and then you could go, because are you there?
Yes, still listening to you.
Okay, this statistic is what drives it home. Sweden, across the last year, decided no lockdowns, no masks for nobody. They let all their children from 16 years old and younger go to school fully from the start of this pandemic. No restrictions, no masks, nothing. From 0 years old to 16 years old. Anybody in primary school, kindergarten, secondary school could go to school. That was 1.95 million Swedes, let's say 2 million people, 2 million children. Across the year, now when we look at the data, we have found that in 1 year of Sweden's experiment, with no lockdowns, no masks for all their school children, they had exactly 0 deaths. 0. No severe illness in their children. No transmission in the teachers. So we knew in the beginning that children are at the lowest risks. Why would you have even closed schools and took children off the battlefield? It is children who accumulates the type of immunity we need to get to that herd immunity number. So Trinidad has hurt itself. We have set Trinidad back right now because with these variants coming coming, and they will come to Trinidad. All the people in Trinidad who were locked down, and you think, oh, we evade this virus. You actually
we evaded the opportunity to protect ourselves from the virus naturally, and we created a market for scare sales, guerrilla marketing, that is forcing people to set aside critical thinking in the face of facts that you are giving. A woman just right, she'll take her chances with the vaccine. And it's people like them, and I'm glad that they're in the minority, but we need to get to a place now where everywhere people speaks up and speaks out. COVID-19, and I remember when there was a gay plague and a gay disease, and the world was shunning homosexuals and wanting to murder them, and then AIDS was a death sentence until Magic Johnson got it and proved that you could live a long, happy life, and he wasn't gay, he was just a very overactive heterosexual. And then AIDS and HIV went into the background of our reality, and we continued along living lives, taking precautions. We've adopted a post-AIDS posture and have taken precautions. 25 million people have died since, but we've taken precautions because we understand that AIDS is a reality that we live with now. Why are we taking so long to get to a place where, and I am going to write, we're writing today, our Minister of Health, to disclose to the nation of the 142 people who have died, what their age was, and what their comorbidities were. And we're not asking him to pierce patient confidentiality. We don't need their names. We just need the statistics, because the government is not infallible, and it needs to be guided by statistics that it shares with us. If it is continuing to claim that this is so dangerous that it requires us to rummage and loot the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, risk the economy, hijack human rights, erase civil liberties, all in the name of protecting us from a pandemic that doesn't seem to be what it was marketed as a year ago.
Correct. And recently, when Trinidad released that there were 21 children in Trinidad who got MIS-C, multiple inflammatory syndrome, which is this form of COVID they say in children where you have inflammation of certain organs in the body, etc. And all the children recovered and none died. We actually use that number and that data in some reporting that we do, because it demonstrated what we said in the beginning.
So the justification turned out to be flawed science.
Yes, children are almost at zero risk. Zero risk. And Philip, the most important thing in all that you just said, which is exactly correct, and people are not saying it the way you're saying it, is this. In a society today, we know that influenza, normal seasonal influenza, kills far more people, children, etc., is more lethal. You have to understand it this way. SARS-1, which is sister to the SARS-2, same family, in 2003, the mortality rate was 10%. 10%. The mortality rate talking about here is way less than 1% for SARS-2. We have the data of two sister viruses. SARS-2 is a version of SARS-1. It is far less lethal. We never locked down for SARS-1. We never masked like this craziness. We never closed schools, etc. Yes, SARS-1 moves in and moves out quickly. But the point of view is this. MERS, which is the Middle Eastern coronavirus, the move to the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, etc. The mortality rate was 39%. We never did all of these things. There's something unique about COVID 2019, and that was the political and the economic aspect of it. But you see, the key is in the beginning, It was to take Trump out. And this is not joke. This is the truth. The problem is the rest of the countries and governments and the technocrats and the bureaucrats and the government leaders realize, hey, I have so much power. I could use this virus to scare people. I could tell 20-year-old Johnny, who's a young, strong, strapping trini with no medical conditions, running around, playing around with the girls,
to introduce into his system something that could actually kill him.
Correct. And I could tell Johnny that he is at equal risk of severe outcomes or death as 90-year-old Granny, who have 4 medical conditions that are grave and will kill Granny absent and give COVID. So Johnny at 20, young virile Johnny, hiding in his basement because he thinks that he's at the same risk as Granny. That was the lie. We told people in the beginning to scare them and to introduce this fear that you are all at equal risk, when in fact, only a very, very minute percent.
So can you say 1 year later, in fact it's 1 year and 6 months later, but 1 year to us in Trinidad, because even though the government of Trinidad and Tobago were given a heads up and they read the same public health ordinance into law on, and is legal notice 34, January 31st, 2019. When they did that, they paused it, had a carnival, and then 2 weeks later came to lock down the country after carnival. I think they knew then that it was a certain amount of bullshit. The Minister of Health has contradicted himself and flip-flopped on so many things during the very beginning. The people lost faith in him and they had to trot out a chief medical officer who has now squandered any credibility and professional integrity that he had.
I know.
Because now Parasram is tweaking numbers for the government. And instead of saying we have 7 new cases, he needs to inflame the nation. It's an 89% increase. An 89% increase from 0. Yeah, but still 7 cases. And of those 7 cases, none became serious cases. And they're not being honest with us. They're giving us the panic information, but they're not coming back and telling us the information that we have from the rest of the world. So Trinidad's public health system is lying by omission and not explaining to the country that of the 8,004 people who ever got COVID, only 142 died. And they need to come straight with the population and tell, and this is what we are going to if we have to sue them in the courts.
It's not 8,000. It's actually, if you say 8,000.
No, I hear you, and I know your algorithm, and I agree with you, but I don't want to introduce that into the... Yeah, but I don't want to introduce it into the conversation because you'll confuse the people. I want them to use the numbers that they're given, and I want to hang them from their own petard. If you say these are your numbers, I'm going to work with your numbers. Even your numbers, your official numbers, makes it a lie. Because the official number says 1.5% of the population got COVID-19, and of that 1.5%, 1.5% succumbed. That is a ridiculously small number for a nation that leads the Western world in heart disease and diabetes and some types of cancer. We have a spike. If we have a spike in anything right now, the John Sabga Foundation has information. Johnny Gonzalez died from pancreatic cancer. John Sabga III died from pancreatic cancer. We have a spike in cancer clusters. And we're doing things in this country. Our waste handling. I went into the dump in the Labas where they tip out all the garbage. We have no sorting, no separating. We put all of the heavy leads and everything in one spot and just dump that, and then it leaches into the water and gets into the ground and into the air. Trinidadians not even aware how badly this entire country is being managed. And if we were to start to focus on real health issues in Trinidad and get to the bottom of it, there'd be a lot more things to panic about. But I am saying to you that we now need to speak up worldwide and debunk this notion that COVID-19 is this pandemic that is going to kill people, because it's not, and it hasn't. You've had a year, and as you say, and as one of the scientists who are on the front line, you've said that now you could be 90 with comorbidities and you have the knowledge to manage even you. Nobody should die.
Correct.
Nobody should die. In Trinidad, we have a very high mortality rate of women giving birth to children in our public health institutions. Our biggest killers in this country remain lifestyle. We die from fast food-induced heart disease, from soft drink and candy-induced diabetes. We have massive amputation and blindness numbers that nobody's taking on because it's all lifestyle. Lung cancers and throat cancers directly linked to smoking. We now have cases of people developing lung diseases from vaping. They're hiding that information. We drive drunk and kill people on the road, kill ourselves. Those numbers are not being brought to front. And if those numbers were brought to front and added to the 500 people who are going to be murdered this year because we keep our drug economy open to facilitate the drug lords and the dirty money that finances the gangs that facilitated and causing all this killing. If we looked at those things, the way we lock this country down for COVID-19, nobody will die of anything but old age. And that's our reality. Our people are dying in big numbers from preventable diseases and lifestyle issues, and we're not paying attention to that, but we're overcorrecting and overreacting to a disease that is not as bad as they say.
Well, listen, you have raised probably the most important point that we are pushing right now. By the lockdowns and scaring Johnny and they, we have right now a real crisis on our hands, because people who are sick, who needed to go and get their biopsies and get their heart disease check and everything, they did not. And right now what we are seeing and what we know is coming is a real pandemic of chronic diseases is waiting on our doorstep. We are going to have a surge in cancers in the future, not too long, a couple of years. Cancer will escalate because of undiagnosed cancers, cancers that were not treated, heart disease that was not treated. Look, key to all of this too, Philip, is the issue of young people and children mental health. Let me tell you something here. In the United States, in the month of June of 2020, so this June that has just gone, we did a survey, and this is the kind of data that informed us and why people like me, as part of the courts, was trying to open societies and calling for the societies to be open. Yes, we were attacked. Yes, but here's the data. We surveyed the United States, across America, all of the college and university students from
Paul, if I could interrupt you for a second, because I have to keep highlighting people who talk nonsense and expose the nonsense that is in their head. Like somebody named Roseanne Parker saying people have to take responsibility for their own health. You can't blame the government for that. And that sounds so rational when they say it. But they wouldn't answer simple questions. Like, why is a salad more expensive than a Big Mac? And why is a bottle of water more expensive than a similar sized bottle of soft drink that has 5 tablespoons of sugar? These people do not understand that it is the responsibility of the state to influence the tone and the tenor of society, that the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Communication, the Ministry of Social Development, even the Ministry of Finance need to work together to guide people to proper lifestyle choices. It must be cheap to go out and buy food that is healthy for you and expensive and taxed the food that puts you in the public health system. And people need to understand the role of government. Government job is not just to pose on the red carpet and smile. Government job is to manage the society. And I'm sorry for interrupting you there, but when people say things like that, I need to correct them, not only for them, but for anybody else who might read the nonsense they share.
Well, because you see, I lost that train reason they have failed. They have devastatingly failed people. Because I'll give you an example. If your chief medical officer of health would have come to the podium to Trinidadians 1 year ago and issued 2 simple messages. Here's the messages. All right, from the data that we're seeing, great overweight and obesity is a principal risk factor. Because he knew the data. This data is 1 year old. Obesity is a principal risk factor, so you people have to get our weight under control. Because if you got COVID, it will be very difficult to manage you in the emergency room. We can't properly give you the oxygen and do the things needed, because just your weight alone is a problem for you, and it's problematic for your breathing. So you need simple PSA message. Get your weight under control. Obesity is a risk factor. They didn't tell people that, particularly for brown and colored people, the obesity was principal risk factor and the cause of death in the United States and Canada and Britain. Second PSA message, black people, brown people, when sunlight, we learned that vitamin D 1 year ago, we had the data. Vitamin D, lack of vitamin D is a significant risk factor for severe outcomes in COVID. You could have PSA to people and tell them, listen, just have 3 to 4 minutes of sunlight.
When you say PSA, say public service announcement. You're dealing with low information people sometimes. Tell them you need public service announcements to educate.
Yeah, just come to the people in the islands, all the islands, particularly Trinidad, say, get your weight under control, make sure you get 3 to 4 minutes of sunlight during the day, every day. You will not believe the significant reduction in your risk of hospitalization or death. This data is settled data across the world. Just those 2 public service announcements. But somebody like Parashram wouldn't come to the news and tell people that.
No, because he'd lose his job. Because he'd lose his job tomorrow. He's supposed to be advising the government of risk factors associated with the fast food companies, the KFCs, the Royal Castles, the McDonald's, the Burger Kings. Even Subway, that is touted as healthy food, is nonsense. It's full of sodium nitrites and things that are oxygen blockers in your body. He knows these things. He's a doctor, he's a medical professional, but he seems to have rented his soul out for whatever he's paid a month. The truth of the matter is, and I want to go back to that person who spoke that nonsense about people making choices. I read this once. A guy was watching TV and a KFC ad came on, and it was such a powerful call to action. He changed his clothes and jumped in his car to go to KFC. On the way, he passed a Big Mac ad that said McDonald's next turn off, and he decided he will choose that instead. And when he got to McDonald's, there was a Subway next door with a sign that said a discount price, and he bought that instead. At the end of the day, it is all of the advertising and the marketing that is confuffling people's minds and making them believe that somehow this is food. And the chief medical officer has a responsibility to the government to tell the government you're supposed to be advising the public for lifestyle choices. We have a minister of food. Go ahead.
Did you know KFC in Independence Square is the highest per capita KFC
in the world? But we but Paul, we consume things like Pringles that in a lawsuit a judge was able to rule that Pringles is not actually food. It's not actual food. It is nutrition void. And we are selling these things. People go to supermarkets and they get to advertise in the margins where they just come very close to lying to you and telling you that somehow this is beneficial to you. Our Minister of Food Production, our Minister of Agriculture, who's responsible for and in charge of building all the markets that we should have. We should have markets in close proximity to everybody so people could go and get food. And if you have proper markets set up, you'll have people set up in those markets that will cook those foods for you if you don't know how to cook. And we could get to a better, safer, healthier country. But again, as a whole other conversation, I just wanted those people to understand that allowing these people to advertise, hoodwink, and fool you into believing that KFC is in any way, KFC is doing this ad in Trinidad now called KFC. And KFC, and they say the KFC is what makes your stomach rumble. I want to answer those ads so bad. I want to say, and they're talking about, one of the billboards said it's a transmitter, a neurotransmitter that makes you feel good. I want to say, no, that's monosodium glutamate, and that is not good for you. But you don't have the budget. The Ministry of Health is supposed to be able to level that play field so people could make informed choices. And again, that's the role and responsibility of government.
Yes. actually correct. At the end of the day, Philip, I'll be blunt as I could be. I work with probably the top scientists in the world, in the entire world, on issues around COVID, pandemic, immunology, etc. I worked with them at universities, wherever. And I can tell you this, it's a lot of clinical doctors, a lot of specialists. The public has the wrong impression. The general public, you as an example, has more education and knowledge about medicine and science than many of these doctors. They just have a lot of information on anatomy and stuff that fascinates you. But they're actually not very smart people. And COVID has revealed the underbelly and the serious void because they lack ethics. They don't really care about the public's health. And they're very narrow-minded and focused. Let me explain it to you this way. I am an epidemiologist and an evidence-based specialist. I am very different than somebody who's like Parashram. He's looking at it from a very unidimensional view. So somebody tells him from the WHO or wherever, hey, this virus causes death. So his reaction is, let us take these steps to stop the deaths. My reaction is, let us take these steps to stop the deaths, but also, and it's the but also that these people lack. I'm a policy specialist also. I look at the policy, the implications of the policies. We run cost-benefit analyses. We try to understand, okay, this is an issue. This is what we could do to deal with the issue. However, look at the implications of the policy, and if the policy is more detrimental than the issue itself, you can't implement that policy, or you find a version of the policy that is okay for the public, so that you don't kill the public with the policy. And that is what these people's policies were. Parashram and they enacted steps or policies where they did not think through the implications.
It's possible they didn't even understand.
They what?
It's possible they didn't even understand. These people are not the most intelligent of people. And
they're not intelligent people.
Paul, I had to bring this to a wrap though, because you and I on this long time. Tomorrow night, Thursday night, we're doing plain talk. We're going to have Satish Ramsaran reach out to you. We have 2 hours then, and a lot of people have a lot of questions. And I'm going to ask Satish if he could set up for you, and he will get in touch with you, and if you could accommodate us, and we could just open the phone lines for the 2 hours, because people want to ask you questions. People want to be guided by your knowledge, and I would like to be able to facilitate them tomorrow. So if you could check your schedule. And
I will partake, Philip, no problem, because it's Trinidadians and Tobago.
You gotta bring this to a close though. But a point that you made earlier is something a couple doctors said to me the other day, and they don't want to go on record because people are afraid of their own government. And they say people come to the hospital with heart disease and COVID, and they die. They die from complications of heart disease, but they're listed as COVID. And he said that that's what we've been doing. That if you were to get the information of those 142 deaths that took place in Trinidad, you might be very surprised how many of them were actually COVID deaths. Brother, we have to wrap up now. If you want to say a couple words before we go. You're hearing me? Again, somebody? Yeah. If you want to say a couple words before we go, let's bring this to a close. But you will be talking to them tomorrow night on Plain Talk.
Okay, that point you just made is one of probably the most important. See, every time we talk, we have a lot important.
We don't have enough time. I know we don't have enough time. Tomorrow night we will. Tomorrow night we will make the whole show about it.
The issue is not did you die with COVID or did you die of COVID? Did you die because of COVID, or you were just infected? And we found out that maybe about 5% of the deaths that were listed as COVID were actually due to COVID infection itself. The other conditions would have killed you absent of COVID. You are a very ill person, and that's the issue. Many people are gravely ill, and they spiral down.
Then the departure launch, as Vernon de Lima likes to call it, but again, and I mean, COVID-19 did just to those people what it did to the economy in Trinidad and Tobago. It gave the PNM something to hide behind and blame it on COVID. Paul, we have to wrap.
They will never let it go. Philip,
We have to wrap. But tomorrow night, you and I will talk before. But tomorrow night, I will let Satish reach out to you, and we will be doing a live video, so they'll be seeing you. So prepare yourself for that, okay?
All right.
Talk to you tomorrow. Bye. And as I wrap this up, I just want to say to Trinidad and Tobago, this is where the rubber meets the road. The government has information for us, and we have to demand that information. And as of today, this is now my focus. Besides the candlelight movement, I have to broaden my focus now to focus on the issue of COVID-19 and what is being said to us in the country. So until tomorrow night, I'm going to have my brother, epidemiologist, and he's one of the brightest people in the world on this issue. He's one of the most knowledgeable. And for the duration of that show tomorrow evening, we will make it possible for you all to reach out directly, call him and ask him questions. Yeah? So I've overstayed my welcome. As you could see, the boss come to take me away. So until tomorrow evening, stay safe, Trinidad and Tobago. Share this video, please, and get yourself thinking. To the people who are making statements that we had to answer and correct in the video, it's to help you. It's not to fight you, but it's to help you know this. Critical thinking is very important to us going forward as a species. They are manipulating us with mind-numbing nonsense. Okay? Until tomorrow, stay safe, Trinidad.